So Boeing stock is not doing well, and we need to talk about it. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. As you guys can see, Boeing stock went from $267 and is now trading at a price point of $182 a share. Now, the really unfortunate news that has recently been, through the media, I even made a reel about it yesterday. It seemed like some of you guys had a lot of different opinions. One of the first things that I want to share is that there's this Boeing whistleblower, this guy named John Barnett. He was 62 years old. He worked for Boeing for over 30 years, and he ended up leaving the company back in 2017. Shortly after, he opened up a lawsuit against Boeing because he had proof and he had evidence, right, as a whistleblower, and because of him working there, that he had evidence where Boeing was at fault for a series of fatal crashes that led to more than 350 people, unfortunately, passing away. Now, the crazy thing about this is that John Barnett, during this whole process, was being interviewed by Boeing attorneys. And during that process, just a few days later, he was found dead in his vehicle as he was visiting the Boeing attorneys. Now, this happened, if I'm not mistaken, on March 9th. Now, there's been more unfortunate news. I'm sure you guys have heard of it with all these different Boeing accidents. And now there's even the CEO of United Airlines that's trying to look for different alternatives because these Boeing airliners are just not meeting expectation. And now there's a supposed audit that's happening for Boeing and one of their partners that creates, different parts of the plane. So you guys can go into actually the details if you want to read any of these articles. But when looking at Boeing's stock performance, it's really concerning because at first I begin to think, okay, this is unfortunate news. Is it detrimental to the company? Maybe not, right? And because it's so cheap to lows of 180 and the potential for it to recover to highs of 267, this stock is down 30%. So that means that if it recovers back to previous highs, it offers about a 44 to almost 45% ROI. That's very attractive. But then you really begin to ask yourself, well, the cheap can always get cheaper. Boeing has a history of trading at $113 per share. And the other thing that I began to ask myself is, well, Boeing does have a lot of government contracts. And because of those government contracts, we've seen it during COVID, where the government stepped in when a lot of these airlines were struggling and they created a stimulus package for them, right? Pretty much a bailout so all of them don't, file for bankruptcy. Now, it looks like Boeing is going through a rough patch. And I think this is a perfect example of when it rains, it pours. Supposedly, there's an investigation that's happening because of the John Barnett situation where it just seems like really odd timing that a whistleblower has evidence of showing proof to Boeing that later led to 350 people passing away. And then all of a sudden, John Barnett is found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound when he was meeting with Boeing attorneys. And then on top of that, all of the different incidents and accidents that are happening with Boeing. Again, it's just not the best position to be in, to say the least. So I wanted to ask you guys what you think, right? There's obviously no indication of a reversal just yet. And I think that's essentially what it comes down to for me. I added Boeing to my watch list, and it's because it's become so cheap. But adding it to my watch list does not mean that it's a stock that I want to buy right now, because the cheap can always get cheaper. So instead of just buying the dip blindly and hoping that it recovers, what I would like to see is what it did last time. When it sold off, you allow it to sell off, and then it begins to show signs of a support, and you wait for confirmation of a reversal, actually waiting for the price action to indicate signs of a recovery and not just, hoping that it does. And I would say that's going to be the biggest difference for me, where I'm going to set my alerts and make sure that I follow up with Boeing, on a consistent basis. So if it does begin to recover, that, I might not capture the full 45% move, but even if I capture 15, 20% of it, I think it's safe to say that, it has so much margin to work with for potential recovery that even if I capture a very small portion of that, it would be a positive takeaway. Now, obviously, there's very unfortunate news, and it seems like we're barely scratching the surface with what is going on with Boeing, and things can definitely get worse before they get better. But I wanted to bring this to your attention and to ask, is this something that you would consider adding to your watch list? And would you take the same steps that I would of waiting for indication of a recovery before just blindly buying the dip? So you guys let me know down in the comment section, and also let me know what you think about that John Barnett situation. It just seems very suspicious timing where he would have a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but yet he had all this evidence that could have led to the potential downfall of this multi-billion-dollar company known as Boeing. So let me know down below. I hope that earned your thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And again, I'd love to invite you to my live trading session. I do trade live every morning. And if you want to tune on in, it's that second link in the description down below. I appreciate your time. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.